Hello, hackers. Welcome to Hacker 101 iOS Inter-App Communication. In this module, we'll look at a few methods that iOS applications leverage to communicate with one another. Several of the demos and exercises in this module do require a jailbroken device installed with Frida. iOS doesn't provide many options to share data between applications from different publishers. As a result, developers learned how to leverage whatever they could find to get the job done. Unfortunately, not all of those methods were designed to share data securely. One of the best examples of this is the iOS Pasteboard. The Pasteboard is a buffer that holds copied data so it can be pasted elsewhere. If you've ever copied text inside an application and pasted it into another, you've used the Pasteboard. The UI Pasteboard class provides two types of pasteboards for applications to use. The general pasteboard is a public shared pasteboard, accessible to all applications. Applications can also create their own private pasteboards, also called named pasteboards. Prior to iOS 10, private pasteboards were persistent, which created an opportunity for data sharing between apps. If two apps knew the name of a private pasteboard, they could use it to pass data back and forth. However, private pasteboards were never intended for secure data sharing in that fashion, and had no restrictions on access if an app knew the pasteboard name. This could result in an app eavesdropping on or even modifying the contents of a private pasteboard. This led to the removal of private pasteboard persistence in iOS 10. Private pasteboards can still be created by an application, but no other process can access it, and it does not persist after the application process exits. Apps that used private pasteboards to share data prior to iOS 10 might now try to do the same with the general pasteboard instead. Since the general pasteboard is accessible by all applications, using it to securely share data is inherently risky. Applications might address this by encrypting the data. That could work if the applications adhere to best practices for encryption, but I've definitely observed applications in the wild that contain a hard-coded pre-shared secret used to encrypt pasteboard contents. Even if pasteboard data is securely encrypted, it could still be tampered with by other applications. This can be another stumbling block if an application processes untrusted pasteboard data in a risky way. Let's look at how to access the general pasteboard at runtime and tamper with the contents. For this exercise, I've connected my jailbroken device to my computer via USB, as seen in the output of Frida Ellis devices. I've launched the iGoat Swift application on the device, and I'm going to attach to it with Frida. I'm using the -U flag to let Frida know my device is attached via USB. First, I'll use Frida's Objective-C API to get a reference to the general pasteboard and assign it to a variable p. I can print the contents of p as a string to verify that I have a handle to the pasteboard. The items method of the pasteboard instance holds any data that has been copied. If I print that as a string, we can see that it is currently empty. I'm going to try copying some data on my device, then print out the contents of the pasteboard again, this time using console.log so things like tabs and new lines are interpreted and printed nicely. Scrolling up a bit, you can see that the copied text is represented in various formats, including HTML and rich text. We can use the same API to modify the contents of the pasteboard as well. Let's say we want to replace the contents with some text. We can use the pasteboard method setValue for pasteboard type to overwrite the current contents of the pasteboard with our own. If I were to paste on my device, I would see this text instead. Next, let's look at a method that was intended for data sharing, URL schemes. For a long time, this was the recommended way for applications to share data. An application can register a scheme, like the My app in the URL at the bottom of the slide, in their info.plist file. This tells iOS to launch or foreground the application when a URL with that scheme is loaded. The application also must specify a role of editor, viewer, or none. Documentation on what the role means is pretty sparse, but if no role is specified, iOS will default to assigning the role of viewer. When an application is launched to handle a URL, iOS will invoke one of several possible methods implemented by the application. The available methods have changed over time as new versions of iOS have been introduced. Early versions of iOS supported application handle open URL, but this method did not provide information about the source that loaded the URL. As a result, the application can't restrict access to the URL scheme. Apple later introduced application open URL source application annotation to address that gap, but many applications still didn't bother to actually check the value of source application. Both this method and handle open URL have been deprecated, but some applications may still use them. The method currently supported is application open URL options, which provides information about the source of the URL load in the options dictionary. Let's take a look at an example of a URL scheme in an application and how to trace the handlers. We can use plutil to examine the info.plist file for any registered URL schemes. Under the CF bundle URL types key, iGoat has one registered scheme with a role of editor. That scheme can be invoked using iGoat. I dumped the strings from the primary app executable to a file earlier, so I'll search that file for any appearances of iGoat. I'm hoping to find out how the application expects it to be used. Luckily, there is an appearance of a URL using the scheme. This is definitely something I'd want to test further. First, I want to determine what handler the app is using to process incoming URLs. I've once again connected my device via USB and confirmed that Frida can see it. I've already launched iGoat Swift on the device, so I can attach to it with Frida Trace. I'm using the -m flag to tell Frida that I want to match Objective-C methods in the application, and I'm providing a pattern that will match any URL scheme handler that iOS supports. When I hit enter, Frida Trace lets me know that one matching method was found. This is probably the handler we are looking for, but we can confirm that by trying to load a URL with iGoat's scheme. I'll use Safari to manually type in iGoat:// iOS will prompt me to confirm the app to load the URL. On the left, you can see that Frida has logged a method invocation. This confirms that we have identified the URL scheme handler used by the application. Applications that intend to invoke another app's URL scheme have an interest in knowing if that app is installed first. iOS provides a canOpenURL method to query whether a particular scheme is handled on the device, though it only reveals if a scheme is supported by some installed app, not specifics about which app will handle it. Even so, Apple is careful to restrict this capability because an application can theoretically build a list of the applications installed on a device by profiling the supported schemes. In fact, this is exactly what a lot of applications did for analytics purposes before Apple restricted this functionality. In current versions of iOS, apps must declare the schemes they want to query in the info.plist file under ls application queries schemes. Reviewing the contents of this key can help you understand how an application expects to interact with other applications installed on the same device. I'm viewing an info.plist file in XML format from an application I installed from the App Store. This particular application lists a number of URL schemes in the ls application queries schemes array. It may be the case that the application intends to communicate with other apps via these schemes. I'd keep an eye out for any functionality in the app that shares data to other apps named here, and search the app for any strings that match these schemes. Another explanation is that the app is tracking information about whether the apps that handle these schemes are also installed on the device. If I suspected that, I'd examine the app's traffic to see if a list of installed applications is sent over the network. In the next module, we'll look at how to configure an iOS device to capture traffic for analysis. On the surface, URL schemes seem perfect for sharing data, but they suffer from some surprising and counterintuitive issues. Perhaps the biggest relates to the ownership of a scheme. Apps are allowed to register any arbitrary scheme. There is no central approval process or vetting to ensure that schemes are unique across all apps in the App Store. That means nothing prevents multiple apps from registering the same scheme, even on the same device. As a result, using a URL scheme to send sensitive data to another application is not advisable because there is no guarantee a particular app is the only registered handler for that scheme. A secondary issue is that source validation is not foolproof since the uniqueness of bundle identifiers is only enforced within the App Store. For practical purposes, source validation is probably good enough, but apps often don't take advantage of it anyway. Based on these issues, there are several vulnerabilities you can look for in applications that use URL schemes to receive data. Remember how an application's URL scheme has a role associated with it? It turns out that iOS uses this role to decide what app to launch if there are multiple installed apps that have registered the same scheme. If only one of those apps has the editor role, that app will be given priority over the others. An app that does not declare the editor role for its registered URL schemes is vulnerable to having those schemes hijacked. Failure to validate the source of a URL load or the data passed in the URL before acting on it can also have consequences for an iOS application. If an application only expects to exchange data with a defined set of other applications, then accepting data from unauthorized sources may have unexpected results. Further, if an application trusts the data sent in the URL without validation, it could lead to crashes, corrupt data, and even attacks against the application's users. It isn't unusual for the validation of URL scheme data to be an afterthought. Even if you don't know the exact format of expected URL input, you can still do some basic testing and see how the application reacts. If you have a device but it isn't jailbroken, you can load URLs manually using Safari, just like you saw in the previous demo, and observe if the application crashes or behaves unexpectedly. On jailbroken devices, it is faster and easier to use runtime instrumentation to programmatically load URLs. For this exercise, I'm not going to attach to the app directly. Instead, I'm attaching Frida to Springboard, a system process that I can use to open URLs programmatically. I'm using the CodeShare feature of Frida, which allows you to load a project shared on the Frida CodeShare website. This project will inject JavaScript into Springboard to enable opening and fuzzing URLs. I'll use the OpenURL function provided by the project to try loading a URL with the iGoat scheme. We can see that load was successful. Next, I'll use the fuzz function to test a URL that contains a placeholder where the script will substitute some garbage input. The script will open each new URL to launch iGoat, background the app, and check to see if it crashed as the result of processing the URL. If a crash is detected, a message will be printed to the screen. In this case, no crashes were detected, but we might see different behavior if we were using a URL in a format expected by the application. You've seen that URL schemes suffer from pitfalls that can lead to vulnerabilities. Universal links were introduced to address some of those issues. Universal links are typical HTTPS URLs that point to a website that corresponds to the application. To register universal links, an application must be signed with the associated domain's entitlement that specifies the website domain, and must establish an association with that domain via a file called Apple App Site Association. This file must be served from each domain the app expects to handle. The contents of the file spell out which paths are handled by the app and which are excluded from handling and instead opened in a browser. The requirement to tie the app to a website means that universal links can't be hijacked the way that URL schemes can. An app can send data in a universal link and be confident that only the intended app will be invoked to receive it. The configuration for universal links is a bit complicated, so let's take a look at an example. The Apple App Site Association file you see here is loaded from developer.apple.com. The details array near the top contains the mappings of allowed and disallowed paths for each app the domain supports. For example, this app ID belongs to a debug version of Apple's WWDC app. The list of paths first lists a number of supported paths under videos. After that, it excludes even more paths using the not keyword. These excluded paths would not be loaded in the specific app on an iOS device, but instead would be launched in Safari. The order here matters because the first path to match is the one that is used. A path under a WWDC directory that does not match the list of exclusions will be allowed, because one of the later paths in the list allows all WWDC paths. The developer.apple.com domain supports 2 additional apps as well. Again, the order here matters. The first app with a matching path will be used if multiple matching apps are installed on the device. Universal links are definitely architected more securely than URL schemes, but they aren't foolproof. The handlers for universal links can be vulnerable to the same input validation weaknesses that affect URL schemes. Tests that the contents of universal links are validated by the application by passing in valid data in unexpected formats and watching for crashes and unusual application behavior in response. You now know how to identify and test some common types of inter-app communication mechanisms on iOS. Be sure to check out our next module, where you'll learn about iOS transport security mechanisms and see how to bypass certificate pinning while intercepting application traffic with a proxy. Until then, happy hacking!